Welcome to the Collective Talk podcast, where we share reflections on prayer, family, and ministry. On today's episode, we're going to talk about fashion and Jesus and how you can love both of them at the same time. Today, I'm super elated because we have one of my most favorite guests here on the show who happens to be my beautiful friend and a fashion influencer, Jess Bailey, to the show. Can you help me welcome Jess Bailey to the show? Hey.
Hi, how are you?
I'm so glad that you're on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
I was super excited to ask you, and I'm like, hey, we've got to talk about this topic of fashion and Jesus and all that stuff. But before we dive into that, I just want to say you just always look amazing.
Thanks.
Your outfit is just incredible.
Thanks. Everything is old,
but it's so
can't
good.
link anything
what?
for you.
Okay, what do you have on? I just want to.
This blazer is from Starrett's, and then this is an Abercrombie bodysuit. An old Zara belt, old Zara skirt.
Oh my gosh.
And that's it.
I'm obsessed with the skirt. I asked you before we started, the show. I'm like, where's that skirt from? Because I love it. It's so beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, before we dive into this topic, I wanted to ask you, can you give us a brief summary of your background, of your story, and then how you came to Oceans Church here in Orange County, California?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you want me to go into how I became an influencer, or just like what background, or just Oceans?
Yeah, just any one of them. Okay. So yeah.
Okay, I'll start with Oceans first, and then we can go into background.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay, so I came to Oceans about 4 years ago.
Yes.
So we were at a previous church. That's where we met the cooks.
Yes.
And during their transition period, they said, hey, we're going to check out another church.
Yeah.
And they're our best friends. So I said,
Yes.
where you go, I will go.
Aww.
So we followed them here. And the rest is history. I mean, we've loved it, obviously. You guys have been so great to us and changed our lives.
And Pastor David Cook is a worship pastor at our church. So you guys have been friends with Karina, his wife, and David for a long time.
Yeah, as soon as they moved to California, really.
Wow, that's awesome. So cool. So that's kind of how you came to Oceans Church. Then how did you become a fashion influencer? When did that all start?
So it was on accident. I actually had zero intention of ever getting into the social media space.
No.
So my background is actually in sports. I went to grad school for sport management, and during my time there, I worked for a lot of teams on the collegiate, minor, and professional level.
No way.
Yeah. And so my last bigger gig was with the Dodgers, and I was there for 3 years, but towards the end, I wasn't really growing as a person anymore and in my work. So I decided to take a break. And anyone who loves baseball knows that it's a very long season.
Yeah.
So I really never had any vacation. So I gave myself a couple weeks, I gave myself a couple months to just hang out, breathe before I started applying for another job.
Wow.
But during that time, I mean, when you go from 100 miles an hour to zero, it's so hard to just sit on the couch and do nothing. So during that time, to kill time, a lot of my friends were always asking, hey, would you help style me for this? Or what would you wear to this?
Wow.
So I decided to create a new Instagram account and just make outfits.
No way.
So that people have an archive to look at, when they needed ideas.
Yeah.
That was all it was. It was just for my friends. And after a couple months, I had my first brand reach out and ask if they could send me clothes for free.
Oh,
and I mean, when you're in your early 20s, you're like, I hit the jackpot, right?
What a dream.
So I was like, oh my gosh, I made it, So I did a couple posts, but this was 7 years ago, 8 years ago.
Wow.
So this was before social media was anything, right? It was just blogs and writing articles.
Yeah.
But social media, the algorithm, the influencer marketing, none of this existed.
Wow.
So I thought, okay, if this brand keeps sending me clothes for free and it's so easy for them to do so, surely I can maybe finesse like $50,
Yeah,
so
for
I said,
sure.
hey, instead of doing it for free, clearly a lot of people are using the code that you've given me.
Yes.
I can generate sales. How about you pay me?
Wow.
And I said $50. I was like, that's a lot of money to me.
Yeah.
And they said yes. And I was like, $50. And it was so unprofessional. Like I had them Venmo me the $50.
No way.
Like it wasn't anything, secure.
Wow.
But then I thought, if this brand is willing to, then let me just start pitching myself to other brands to see, what I can get out of this. And that was probably 4 or 5 months in. And everything that I had learned in business in grad school, it's all transferable knowledge. It's just in a different industry.
Yes.
So I was able to write out emails and, draft things, pitch myself very easily and in a professional manner where, again, this didn't exist. So me doing that, people are like, oh my gosh, like, what is this thing, Yeah. And I would tell them, hey, I actually think it'd be a great idea to get your name more out there. Yeah. I have established a following. There's people who love the fashion. This can give you more exposure. Like, pay me.
Wow.
And people literally did. And so I thought, okay, there's something here, right?
Yes.
Everyone thought I was crazy for leaving sports and just throwing away my master's degree. They're like, what? Like, this is not sustainable.
Yeah.
You're not going to make it. Like, what are you doing with your life? But literally now, fast forward, this, and now it's a career, which is crazy.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that backstory, that you were into all the sport, all of that.
Oh, Tyler is very lucky that I love sports. Let me just throw that out there.
That is incredible. I didn't even know that backstory. That is amazing. So then how did you and Tyler meet then? Like, what was the story behind that?
So it was through a mutual friend at the time. His friend had showed me my Instagram and I was, I think, still in a relationship at that time.
Oh, no.
So Tyler was like, why would you show me this girl if she's not even available, right?
Yeah.
But he actually, by coincidence, the next week had saw me working at the stadium.
Wow.
So his aunt has season tickets, and they are up right where the aisle where I always walk up from the field.
Way.
So he saw me and he goes, wait, hey, like, that's her. So then we ended up meeting a month later. We did not like each other at all. We were just not each other's.
You didn't like each other?
No, like not even as a we just
like friends or anything?
No, not really.
You just didn't click?
We just did not vibe at all.
That's crazy.
I know. And so we were social media friends, right? But I think fast forward maybe 6 months, I knew he was a trainer at a local gym.
Yeah.
And it was about to be New Year's, and everyone has New Year's plans. I was so pale, and I knew his gym had tanning beds.
No.
So I was calculating, like, okay, how much is a tanning membership? Which, by the way, please do not use tanning beds, you guys. They were actually so bad.
But
this was in another lifetime.
Yes. Yeah, I feel like I did too, all the time.
We all did, yeah.
And we know now it's like they're so bad.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
Definitely not.
But I was like, okay, tanning membership is actually more expensive than the gym membership, and I can probably finesse like a deal. I'm sure he gets like a family and friends discount.
No way. So you were basically using him, Jess?
Yes, absolutely. I wasn't making that much money, And I was like,
you had to do what you had to do.
I had to do. So I hit him up. I said, hey, blah, blah, blah. And I think at that point, someone had told me like, oh, he thinks you're cute. So I was like, this is a for sure done deal. Like I got it.
Yeah.
So I got the family and friends discount from Tyler, started using the tanning beds.
No.
And then I would just work out when he was in between clients. So I would see him on the floor.
Right.
And then we would just small talk here and there. But I think one thing that we both discovered that is we both really loved Jesus, but this was also during our lukewarm era, so we wanted more, but we just never had a community around us to like take us further.
Wow.
So at least we had each other.
Yeah.
And I think that was really cool because it established a very firm foundation where it's like we're friends but Jesus is the center.
Yes.
And then we became best friends from that, and then kind of just rolled into now being married.
That is so cool. I didn't know that backstory either. So basically, Tyler, she used you. No, I'm just kidding. It's crazy how like God just puts us together,
totally.
Like how Mark and I met too. It's like just so amazing how God works like that, but that's so cool. Hey, and so I wanted to ask you, I love the fit reels that you're doing that are basically you take your phone and you do reels at our church, like fashion reels. Those have been like some of my favorite that you do on your social. I mean, all the stuff. I mean, Ace too. I mean, Ace, her son is the cutest, and their whole family is just the cutest family ever. But Ace is like my favorite. But like your fit reels are just filmed at our church. Just super cool. What made you think of that idea? And and then just some of the stories you were telling me that after doing those reels, people at the store would stop you, right? Yeah. And like say,
someone at the store called me the Oceans influencer.
Yeah, Oceans influencer.
Like, it was a man too. I was like, oh my gosh.
We're not even, oh no. We're not even paying you, Jess. And they're like saying you're an Oceans influencer.
So you guys should get me on stuff.
Yes, come on. We should, Jess. Should be paid. So what made you start doing those, or what gave you that idea?
Yeah, so there was... For a couple years now, there's been this trend of what people are wearing in LA or New York or just whatever country people are in. And I also get asked pretty often, hey, can you do some church outfit ideas? Like, I never know what to wear. I want to look modest, but, you know, how do I blend my style without making it look forced?
Right.
So I thought, okay, instead of just me coming up with ideas, why don't I just film people at church? It's easier, it's faster, it's more diverse. We can get guys in there too, you know, because girls always want their boyfriends or husbands to also look great, right?
Yes.
And it's just easy. So I did it, and I had no intentions of ever doing it more than one time.
Yeah.
But everyone loved it. I got so much great feedback, and a lot of it was actually women saying, wow, like the Oceans Church makes modesty look so cool and so like tasteful and not, you know, modesty doesn't have to be boring, right?
Wow.
And so I thought, okay, you know, maybe I'll just start doing compilations, and it's just kind of blown up to this thing where it's either people at church will come up to me saying, hey, I found Oceans because of your outfit reel, and now Oceans is our home church. Or people will DM me saying, I now watch Oceans online because of your outfit reel. Or people will tell other people at church, and then, you know, our congregation will tell me, hey, I met someone and they said like, oh, they know our church because of this, and now they want to check it out. So it's cool because, you know, of course, fashion can be seen as a taboo thing when it comes to Christianity. But I think you guys have always honed in on use your gifts, right? And I always knew that I had an inclination for fashion, but how do I marry the two without people thinking that I'm materialistic or I'm just trying to keep up with the Joneses? And this clearly, you know, fashion is a segue to Jesus if it's done for his glory.
Yeah,
and this is like living proof that so many people now know Oceans. And I can see the stats of my videos, and people in other countries are like loving it, DMing me, people from the UK, people from Australia. So,
and I've met people like they'll, you know, I'll pray for them at church or something, and they're like, and I'm like, I always ask people, how did you hear about Oceans? And they're like, well, I followed Jess, you know, Bailey on social media, and I started coming to Oceans because of her. And so I just think it's a testament to you and just your faith and being bold for Jesus. And I truly believe that fashion is an evangelistic tool that we could use. Do you agree?
I absolutely agree.
Yes. Yeah. Because it's already, you know, that guy at the store, then all the people that are coming into the church. I really believe that fashion can be used as an evangelistic tool.
A lot of the messages that I actually get are, I started following you for the fashion, but then I stayed for Jesus.
No way.
Where most people are, a lot of them will tell me, hey, I actually stepped away from the church. There's a lot of church trauma, a lot of church hurt, you know, whatever. And me just writing the posts, which I can't take credit for. I'm literally just copying, pasting what you guys say, you know, and making stories of them. But the way that you guys articulate things, it's so applicable to everyday life. And I think it helps people change the mindset of, oh, religion or Jesus isn't this rigid, strict thing. It's truly just how to live a better life and, you know, everything else that comes with it.
So good.
And so a lot of people have now become Christians or like converted to Christianity. Like that's another crazy one where
amazing.
I've had people say like, oh, you know, I used to be Catholic or Mormon, but like because of your pastors and I'm a Christian now, and it's wild. It's crazy.
So just to see the giftings that God's given you with fashion, that God's using those to reach people. And I think that is amazing. Like what you're doing, I'm just like so proud of you. And I've always felt that fashion and beauty we're called to use our giftings to reflect God's beauty. And we're all image bearers, and I talk about this a lot, but that we're called to be image bearers. And if that's the case, that with our fashion, with our art, with our architecture, with everything we do in life, it should reflect the beauty of God. And so, I think in our Western civilization or our culture today, I feel like we've downgraded the beauty of God, like the awe and wonder. Right. Like, just look at our architecture nowadays. It's not as opulent as it used to be, and just our buildings are more like boxes. And our our fashion isn't as beautiful, and all the different things. I feel like we've downgraded the beauty of God. And so that's why I love to see what you're doing, because you're reflecting the image of God. And I think, a lot of people will say, they'll throw that verse at you, Romans 12:2, but do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is the good, acceptable, and perfect will of God. And they're like, well, you can't be conformed to this world, so that's why you can't love fashion. And I disagree.
I think it's the opposite. Because I have this renewed mind. I'm like, how do I use this to get people to Jesus?
True. Yes. Yeah. And it's like, I feel like it reflects your heart. If you're, what's going on in the inside of your heart, and you're reflecting the image of God. And so I think that we need to bring back the beauty through our fashion, through our art, through our architecture, through all the things that we do in life, reflect the beautiful image of God. And so that's why I'm like, we've got to bring back the beautiful buildings, church buildings, and the beautiful fashion, and what you're doing. And so I just think it reflects what's going on in the inside. It was crazy. So I have to tell you this. A couple days ago, we were coming back from a trip, and we're on the plane. And I always just dress up. I'm just, that's just me and you. Yeah. So we're always so I had this outfit on, and the flight attendant was like, oh my gosh, I feel like you're the best dressed on the plane. And because of that, he kept coming to me, Mark, and our daughter, and he kept bringing us stuff from first class, and bringing us stuff, and kept giving us free stuff. And then I was able to just Mark and I were able to love on him, share, with him about the love of Jesus. So it's I just feel like, beauty, I feel like we've got to reflect God's beauty, because people see that. I think Christians should be the most, people should see God's image through our faces, through just through what we wear, through everything that we do. And obviously, we don't want materialism to, anything that you put in place of God, becomes a god, And so I feel like you can't replace God in your life, and that's to anything. It's not just fashion or all that stuff. But I feel like that God wants to use fashion to reach people. And it reflects, I believe, going back to the beauty of God. So, but I'm just so proud of you, and just to see how God's using you through social media and through all the God doors that God's opening for you. I'm just really, really proud of you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Honestly, it's only because of you guys in college, because had I not gone through that radical year of college and just under your guys' teaching, I would not have ever stepped into this. And then it's how sad that all those people that have now reached us because of it would have never met Jesus or come to Oceans,
Oh, and there's so many. I can't even tell you, Jess. That person, I think, was probably the fourth person that I've talked to that said that you've invited them, or they found out about our church through you on social media. So it's just a testament to just your shining for Jesus in your sphere. So this is a question that a lot of people, I even saw on your social media, when you'll do some stuff about our church and then fashion at the same time. People are like, can you love Jesus and can you be a Christian and love Jesus and fashion at the same time? And what would you what would you answer that question with?
Yes, absolutely. You know?
Yeah.
I think, well, what's funny is a lot of the feedback that I get on the reels is, oh, these people are materialistic. Their heart's not in the right place.
Right.
And most of the people in the reels are my friends who are college students. And I'm like, you guys, our college students are not balling. You know, they're balling on a very limited budget. And so, you know, what's cool is that these girls and guys, they get creative with how they can be fashionable.
That's so
and
good.
There's clothing swaps. I give a lot of my clothes to the girls. Which
I love about you. She's always giving so much clothes to all of our college students, and they're like so happy. And like they're like, Jess gave me this outfit, and just to see their faces. So I'm just like, that blesses me that you bless them. Yeah.
But yeah, they just get so, a lot of the things are also thrifted. So you don't need to have money, or you don't need to be greedy to be fashionable. You know, these kids, they're so creative in their style, but their style is secondary to how they live their life. Like they scream Jesus first, but then they're also like, well, check out my threads. And then the clothing is, like you said, a gateway to opening conversation with people, because there's a lot of generations or other certain groups that would never otherwise even give Jesus a chance because people at church don't look like them, you know? But again, it's not us trying to look like the world. This is just what we like. And then there are people to be reached in that category. And therefore we go and we reach them.
So good. Well, you do that so well.
Thank you.
Yes. So where do you get your fashion inspo from?
Honestly, I feel like most people would say, you know, celebrities and stuff, but I don't really like adhering to one particular person. I think a lot of my inspiration just comes from pieces. I see a piece and I think, okay, how can I blend different styles to make it look different, right? I don't have one particular style either. I love so many different ones. So then even for me too, I like to say, okay, how can I make something look Western but also chic, and marry the two and make it look cool? Because I love to maximize an item, and I love to give people ideas of how to pair things that they would never otherwise think to pair it with. And then for me, it's always like longevity of piece. So if I get inspired by a piece, I'm thinking long term, how can I wear this a million different ways? How can I inspire people to style it differently? And then, kind of just, you know.
That's awesome. Well, you do it so well. And I'm so like, I'm always like, okay, what is Jess wearing? How can I like, you know, I take so much inspiration from you. So yes, I'm like, hey, on Sunday, what would Jess be wearing?
Oh my goodness.
So, but what would you say, like, what does modesty mean to you? And how can we approach that without being legalistic? I think is a good question.
That's, for sure. And I know a lot of girls always think, well, I don't need to be modest because if men are looking at me, that's their problem. You know, that's such a common thing. So I've been on my modesty journey probably for the last 2 years. I think a lot of it had to start with my identity and where I placed it first.
That's really
so
good.
I had a lot of identity issues, which I didn't know existed until you guys started talking more about it. And then with free dive, with college, I realized, oh, my identity is in just outward. Right. And because I had identity crisis, I also had low self-esteem. I didn't actually, I had confidence in certain ways, but a lot of it was projected out of insecurity. And so I think it's kind of just been a huge plethora of things where God had to strip me of everything that I hid behind first. You know, when I started college, he's like, you're not going to do makeup. You're going to take off your lashes. And I had lash extensions for 8 years.
Yeah, like I remember you going
literally,
through this.
Oh man, I was so scared. Even on the first day of school, I couldn't even look my own friends in the eyes because I was like, oh my gosh, I look so ugly. They're going to notice it right away. They're going to think I'm ugly. And so it was just a huge stripping of everything that I had placed my identity in. And he's like, I want you to shine from within. I want you to repair all the brokenness. And in that, I actually started finding inspiration and a love for modesty of like, now I appreciate outfits where if you're covered head to toe, like how could you look fashionable, but people do it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, you don't have to show off every single body part to have attention, to get this, to get that.
Yes.
And so I think it was fixing my identity and then realizing what I was placing it in. And then now it's more of like a reverence and honor to not just God, but the people around me. And I don't want, now when I go to the gym, before it was just like, you know, sports bras and little shorts and whatever. And now I actually feel more confident when I have like a bigger shirt on or whatever. I mean, it depends on the workout. Sometimes it's like I need the mobility.
Yeah.
But when I'm going to just like the commercial big gym, I don't want to show off my body. And I feel confident because I'm like, I can be strong and I can look strong, but I don't have to show off my body in doing so.
Wow. Well, it's just amazing. I remember when you were, you know, talking to me about all of that. And then I think you were posting about that on social media, what God was doing in your heart. And I think that's a huge thing with like modesty, and that personally God was speaking to you about your identity. And so I think when I think when people struggle with legalism is they're trying to force what God's personally doing on you to them. Right. But God was speaking to you about, this is what I need to do in your heart. And so I think that's, and you never forced that on anybody or like, hey, you need to do what I'm doing, but you were just like on your own journey and God was speaking to you about, this is what you need to do. And then God was dealing with you with your identity. And I think it was just to see like, just the massive difference, like just you're confident to everything. I'm just like, oh my goodness. From the Jess Bailey that I met, like when you first came here to now.
Oh, that girl. R.I.P. Insert Bodhi's song.
Yes. Bodhi's new song.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh.
Oh, honestly, it's so cool to watch your transformation and just to see what God's doing through you. And people are inspired by that. They're like, wow, look at how she's shining and look how confident she is. And so it inspires me. It inspires everybody that follows you on social media. And so I'm just really, really proud to see that transformation in you. So, okay, this is another question, but what, like when you first started out in the fashion industry, what would you change anything about when you first started in like, maybe with social media or how you started it, or are you glad that you went through all the things that you went through, dealing with fashion and things that you went through?
Yeah, it's funny because looking back, I know things that I would have done differently, but I don't regret anything because all of it was all a learning process with God to where I am now. I think had I skipped a few of those steps, God wouldn't have taken me out of the industry to get me healthy, to throw me back in.
Yes.
And I think a lot of the stuff that I used to struggle with, like even when we went to Stagecoach, because I'm in a different place now and I went with that assignment mindset, it was, I couldn't believe my eyes. Like the people that I was around, all the influencers, I was like, was this me? Because it's so cringe. Like the entitlement, the just everything. And it made me realize, oh my gosh, God got me healthy to throw me back in because he wants me to be a light with these people.
That's
but
amazing.
it's so broken, you know? But like I said, I don't regret anything that I went through because I had to do it to go back into the workplace to go back, save other people. So
that's so good. So how would you handle comparison, or how do you handle comparison in your industry?
I think before it was just everything is vanity, right? So it's what car they're driving, like what they have, like all the things, all the monetary, materialistic things. And then I think, again, fixing my identity and then being rooted in Jesus. Now when I see all that stuff, my mind doesn't go to, oh, let me search them up. Let me figure out what they do and like make up some ill story about them in my head, you know? And I think a lot of it also ties back to gossip, where you guys say like no gossiping. And a lot of these things are under the umbrella of gossip, the assumptions, all these things. And so I think it's it's almost like I approach it as ignorance is bliss, but with a sharp biblical mindset behind it.
That's really good.
Where I can see someone now in the industry, like dripped out head to toe designer, but I see them and for me, I'm like, I wish that you knew Jesus because you wouldn't have to project yourself in a certain way, you know, versus, oh, how do they have so much money? Like, I want to get there.
Wow.
And so I think, I don't really deal with comparison in that anymore, which is I'm so grateful for because that's what most of the world operates in. And it's not just my industry, it's anyone. It's
everywhere.
It's body, it's sports, it's money, it's job, it's literally everything in everyone's lives.
Yes.
And so it's comparison is still a die to self thing every day. I think maybe now, if anything, it's she landed this brand collab. Like, how come I got picked over her? Yes. You know, but my mind still then goes back to, well, God knows what I need. And so I'm not going to sit here and be angry or upset or hate on this other person. That's for them. And I love that that's for them.
Yes.
And my time will come and everyone should be able to win because we should be operating out of a kingdom mindset and not a scarcity mindset.
That's so good,
And
Jess.
that's another thing that has been so profound that you guys have taught us. Because the world does operate out of scarcity. It's, oh, here's a big pile. What can I take and grab for myself?
So
you know? But when you know that everyone can win because everything is borrowed from Jesus, he controls everything, then it doesn't matter. Then there is no comparison. There's no jealousy. We can all win in our own ways and uplift each other. And
that's so good. There's always more in God's kingdom.
Exactly.
And we think that like the scarcity mindset just tells you that there's not enough and that we have to, you know, selfishly we have to like take, but there's always more in God's kingdom. And so that's so powerful what you said. So another question is, what have you had to unlearn with how the world sees fashion, with how culture sees fashion? Or is there anything you had to unlearn with that?
I think the assumptions portion.
Assumptions.
That's, you know, just seeing someone and then automatically the mind going to the judgment part.
Yes.
So I think really severing that off of they live how they live, they look how they look. I don't need to have an opinion on it. There's a lot of things that people don't need to have opinions on, right? But we insert ourselves and we feel entitled to have an opinion when it's like, what does it matter?
Yes.
Like, who cares?
Yeah.
And so, again, it's kind of that ignorance is bliss where I'm glad that I'm out of it because I don't see the industry for individuals and small things. I just kind of see it as a whole. And then I see more of what's broken and then what I need to fix.
So good.
But maybe one would be that if you love fashion, that means you're materialistic, you know? And it's like, it's not. A lot of my clothes are old. Like, I've had all of these items for years. I love to recycle things. I love to swap things with friends. It doesn't have anything that involves money suddenly becomes this weird space for people to throw judgment at.
Yes.
So I think just trying to extract yourself from that and not have that outlook.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know if that would.
No, that's like perfect. And then you know what? Like recently you did like a kind of like a fast of like buying stuff.
Yeah.
And on social media you were like, I'm just reusing, and you're so good at that. Like you're just like putting stuff together and I'm like, oh my gosh. And like, and then all the stuff you're like, I don't have like a link to this because it's old. And so it's just so cool to watch that. But I remember following along. I think was it a full month?
It was. So I do it every time we do the 21-day fast.
Oh, that's right.
But this time I just decided I'm going to go as long as I can.
Yeah.
And so with the fasting, when I say no shopping, it's like I'm going to buy shampoo and like toilet paper, right?
Like essentials.
Yes, it's the essentials. But anything that's not an essential, I was just, you know, and it's hard because we're so like Amazon Prime.
Oh.
Buy now. You don't even need to go to checkout. You just press buy now and it's done. It's so hard to just control that.
It's very hard.
So I said, I'm just going to take it a step further and let's see how long I last. So I think I went almost 2 months.
No way.
But it was cool because because I told myself, hey, I told my mind, we're not going there. We're not shopping. So let's get creative.
Yes.
It's crazy what your mind can do when you decide on something. And I felt like my outfits during that time were some of my favorites because I'm using what I already have and the creativity is there.
Yeah.
And it was so fun.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I just think it's so inspiring because your heart posture, that's what I love about you. Your heart posture is always so full of like just listening to God and like, you know, whatever God tells you, you're super obedient and you never know what's on the other side of your obedience. And so just like your heart posture is always so beautiful. Like just you listen to God and whatever he's telling you, you just do. And that's what I love about you. And so what like talk takeaway or what are some takeaways that you would have from, you know, what we talked about today or that you would leave some of the listeners with? Like, what do you think are important things that you would say with fashion and Jesus, or maybe it's your journey or identity or whatever it is? What do you think some of the maybe 2 takeaways you would say to some of the listeners?
I think that if you feel inclined to fashion and if it's something that, you know, God has put on your heart to pursue, you can do it in a way. And if you don't know what to say to the haters, just extract what we said in this podcast and use our words, you know, like there's a huge script for you to just use. So that's the first one. Don't let people, you know, like drag you down about it or make you feel bad.
Yes.
And then the second one is really just identity. That has been the snowball effect for me in so many areas of my life. I feel like when your identity is displaced and you put it in your work or your appearance or what you have, you'll always try to be, you're always going to feel the need to keep up. You're never going to be happy and you're going to always walk in and feel like you need to project because you're not secure in who you are.
Wow.
And so really just honing in on that and getting to the roots. It's not easy and it's a process. Sanctification is a process, right?
For sure.
And so, but it's such a beautiful journey and I am so happy that I'm on this side of it now because truly nothing can rock me. Like I know that I can walk into a room wearing a potato sack with no makeup and I will still slay because Jesus is radiating through me, right? And so I don't need everything else to convince people that I have value. They just need to hear what I have to say and they're like, whoa, she's different. And she doesn't care about anything else, all the other fluff. The fluff is fun, right? But it's not the focus.
Right. That's
and so
really good.
Getting to that place of not needing it, it's so beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that. And like, that's what, again, going back to your heart posture, I just feel like that you just don't let those things, you know, take the place of God in your life. And so, and you have a beautiful balance of that and you just radiate God's beauty in your life in every area. And so that's what I love about you. Okay. So one last thing before we say goodbye is, what one piece would you say that maybe a fashion piece that everybody needs for summer? What would you think that we all need to get?
I think that the maxi satin skirt is still in.
Okay.
I love it. It's so versatile. It's something that you can wear with a boxy tee, or you can style it with a tank and blazer, or you can, you know, grunge it up with a leather jacket. There's so many ways to style it where it's still feminine. You're covered, but it's cool and you look so elevated and chic. I wear it with cowboy boots. I wear it with sneakers. I wear it with heels. Like there's so much to be done. And it's just such a, like a feminine silhouette.
I have one of those. So yay. So wait, can we get that like Zara, or where can we, like, there's lots of places you can get it at. I think I got mine at Zara. They started coming out last year, but I feel like now almost everywhere has them. Abercrombie, Zara, Mango, like all the places.
Literally all the places. Just Google satin maxi skirt and you will have a plethora.
Okay, so you heard it. Jess says you need to get a satin skirt and maxi skirt. So just Google that. But I'm so glad that you came on the show. This was so much fun.
This was really fun.
I literally wanted her to come on the show because I'm like, this is such an important topic. And so it was such a fun show. And I'm so excited you came.
Thanks.
Thank you for coming.
Of course. Anything for you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of The Collective Talk, where we shared all about loving Jesus in fashion. Stay tuned for future episodes where we talk all about prayer, family, and ministry.